Welcome to Lovey's A Life in Entertainment and Media, and today I'm interviewing Amy Trigg. Now, Amy is an actress, but she's not any actress. She's an actress who's won a number of awards for her skills and abilities. Amy, thank you so much for coming in today to speak to me, and I'm really excited because I watch your dad's posts and I can feel his heart must be bursting out of his chest every time he puts something up about you.
Yeah, they're very proud parents. I'm really lucky because I've got my parents are really, really supportive, but never were pushy parents when I was younger.
Yeah.
So I think I've struck gold with the balance with them.
Yeah. Well, your dad, without being too boring, he joined the police in probably about 1987, 88, and he used to drive a Triumph Acclaim. Okay, which is long before you'll even remember. Okay, but it had a particular number plate which was made up of ones and X's. That's all I remember.
Oh, that's mysterious.
You'll have to ask him. So where did it all begin for you, and what was your inspiration to become an actress? Or you're an actor? I mean, where do we sit on this now?
Oh, I mean, I don't mind. An actor or actress, I don't really mind. There's who said a really good quote. I'm going to absolutely butcher this. Might be Denise Goff. She might have said it, where you'd be just as afraid of a lioness as a lion when it comes to actor or actress, something like that. Google the quote. It's much better coming from the horse's mouth.
But that's absolutely right. So where did it all begin for you? You know, you've done some brilliant things. You've won your awards, but how did it all start?
I think I was just always interested in performing and storytelling and kind of escaping into a bit of make-believe. And especially when I was younger, I think I used my imagination a lot to escape from certain things because I was born with spina bifida and spent a lot of my childhood kind of in and out of hospitals and operations and things like that. And it was just became a bit of a tool to escape and become someone else a little bit. And I think that's how it began. But then when I started doing it and doing it more at school, and I went to this camp called Over the Wall Gang Camp, and we did drama there, and I just got more and more interested in it. And my parents started to kind of take me to more theatre and expose me to that. And then I think when it became even more serious for me it was my way of making friends at school. When I found my friendship group, they were all people that went to drama club, or we went to Amdram societies together. And that made me more interested in being involved. So I guess that's what got me into it. But there's just something always in me that wanted to be involved in theatre in one way or another, whether that was going to be directing or stage management or as a makeup artist. I did my work experience in year 10 or 11 as a theatrical makeup artist.
Wow.
So I just wanted to be involved in any way I could, basically. Any way they'd have me, I was there.
Where did you go to school?
But at secondary school.
Yeah.
In Witham, in Rickstones.
So I hope you don't mind, but you're a wheelchair user, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're a wheelchair user. How was that, going to school as a wheelchair user, and what was the acceptance like there?
It was an interesting one because, firstly, I couldn't go to my most local school because it wasn't accessible. So when I started secondary school, most of my friends from primary school weren't there. And my older brother wasn't there because he's only 3 years older than me, I think.
Right.
So he wasn't there either because I had to go to a school that was all on one level. And the other one didn't have a lift. And I think the main thing that affected me was obviously being kind of either the only one or one of very few, and being a bit of a guinea pig in a lot of ways, which then kind of extended into drama school. When I went to drama school, I was the only wheelchair user there at that time, and the first wheelchair user that had done a performance course at that drama school. So spent a lot of time being a guinea pig, and I was really lucky though to have some teachers there who really kind of supported me. I remember when I wanted to do GCSE dance, and the teachers went away and made sure that I could be examined properly and could do it, and made sure it was all put in place. So in that sense, I was really lucky. But of course, there were a lot of difficulties as well.
Yeah.
Less to do with being a wheelchair user, but as I said, I wasn't at school loads because I think there was one year I had like 40% attendance or something because I was just out having operations a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a kid, you kind of come back and you're like, oh, everyone's got their friends. So I went through quite a lot of isolation and loneliness at times at school. And yeah, and, you know, bullying and things like that happened and whatnot. But I always think the bits that affected me most was when people doubted me in the areas that I loved, like with theatre and dance and drama and all things like that. And people questioning whether I belonged in those settings because, you know, you can't dance, you're a wheelchair user. Things like that. I remember that affected me more than kind of anything else, weirdly. Yeah. And I think it's because I had that love and passion connected to it. So the rest I could kind of take and, you know, dealt with it and, you know, counselling and everything.
But do you know what, Amy Trigg, when people see your name in lights, those people that were your detractors, you must be laughing all the way because they didn't deserve your friendship in the first place. So, you know, the fact that you have achieved to such a high level, they'll regret every second of their bullying, narcissistic behaviour.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because I went through a patch where I kind of did hold a bit of a grudge and all things like that. But, you know, I've spoken to some people who made those comments, and a lot of those comments and a lot of those opinions, especially from kids that age, they're just not informed. And I think that's where things have changed. You know, I'm lucky that I came into the industry that I'm in at the time I did because there's more representation on screens and on stages. And it's interesting because you think if that representation had been happening when I was 13 or whatever, then those people probably wouldn't have made those comments. And that's what I always come back to of why representation matters. And, you know, kids just need to learn things and be familiar with something. And obviously it'll be good if they're not familiar with something, it's not immediately jump to being a bit mean. But yeah, I try not to get too caught up.
But the thing is, education is everything, and ignorance is based around lack of education. So, you know, those types of things make a hell of a difference. But of course, you were the first person at the drama school that you went to who used a wheelchair. Where did you go?
I went to Mount View Academy of Theatre Arts, and I was the first wheelchair user on a performance course,
And where is that? Where's Mount View?
Well, it was originally in Wood Green when I went. Well, not originally, it was in Crouch End before that. But when I was there, it was in Wood Green, and they've since moved to Peckham, and they've got like this beautiful building now, like it's massive and all new studios and everything. Wasn't like that when I was there. Like when I went, I remember there wasn't like a lift up to the second floor or whatever in the main building. And they were really good, to be fair to them. They made sure there was a lift in there by the end of, I think, my first term. So they moved quite quickly considering, but obviously for that first term, it's great. I got one-on-one Alexander technique lessons because I couldn't make the group classes and couldn't get to the library. So like people had to do that work for me. But then once they got that sorted, it was, all on me. And I was really lucky as well because the teachers really tried their best to make sure I was included in everything. Like the teaching stuff were amazing. Yeah.
Did you have to go there every day from Essex into the school?
Well, I lived in Muswell Hill when I was there, and I stayed at this like halls of residence place because like North London was a nightmare trying to find an accessible like house or flat or something for me to stay in as a student. So I stayed in halls of residence for 3 years, which meant I did come home quite a lot, like a weekend to see mum and dad and the dog and everything, and my brother. So I was in at Mount View studying Monday to Friday, like all day. And I think that's the thing with drama schools, a lot of people don't realise is full on. You know, you're in at kind of 8:25 for ballet bar or body conditioning, and you're often there till late rehearsing, and then come home and have to learn all your lines or like whatever for the next day, all the songs and everything. So it was very full on, and at times I was a little bit worried that I was going to struggle with that. But I think because I missed so much time at school and felt like I'd missed out on certain things, and felt I'd fallen behind. Like I remember at school coming back once and everyone had learnt what verbs and adjectives and nouns were, and I had no idea, and I just stayed quiet because I didn't want to ask because I didn't want to look silly, which is silly of me to do. I should have just asked. So when I got to drama school, I was like, right, I'm going to be here as much as possible. So I tried to be there as much as I could. Yeah.
But how was your path then from secondary school into drama school?
Yeah, so I mean, I got into amateur dramatics quite late compared to a lot of my peers. I kind of did my first Amdram show at 15, did a couple of them, and that was when I thought, oh, I really like this. Like outside of school, it feels like something that I'd love to spend all my time doing. And I just honestly just went for the path that I saw. Like I knew people went to drama schools. When I looked in programs, when I went to the theatre, I saw people trained at Mount View and Arts Ed and GSA and RADA, and I thought, well, I'll go and do that then. So I decided to audition for a lot of drama schools. A lot, probably too many. But I didn't know whether I wanted to do musical theatre or acting, or like a just straight acting course. Right. So I originally applied for mostly musical theatre, and then someone kind of made a comment about me maybe not being quite right for musical theatre, which is when I changed all of my applications to acting courses, except for Mount View, where I stuck to musical theatre, and that was the one I ended up getting onto. So it worked out in the end.
Fantastic.
But I was lucky that I had, she was a teacher at the school, but she never actually taught me, called Anne May. And she stepped up when she knew I was auditioning for drama schools and helped me find some Shakespeare monologues, because I had to take some Shakespeare monologues. And I didn't really know Shakespeare at the time, never been introduced to it like properly. I don't think I'd learnt about it in English, but not as an actor. And Anne was like amazing preparing me for the monologues that I needed to do at the auditions, and I still remember them like off the top of my head just because of the amount of work we did on them. So I got some help from Anne and other teachers in my area, and auditioned and got in when I was 18.
Fantastic. So you've done your 3 years and you go for your first audition. What was that like for Amy Trigg?
Trying to remember what my first audition was, because I was in quite an unusual situation in that I graduated Showcase, because we had a showcase at the end of the 3 years, and I got an agent through that who I'm still with. So we've been together a little while now. And I got my first ever job without auditioning. They cast me from seeing the show reel that we'd made in our third year at Mount View. Right. And so that was quite a nice start to the industry, really. I thought, well, this is easy. But then I'm pretty sure my first audition was for Sweeney Todd. And I remember learning loads of music for it and going in and just not knowing. I knew what to expect because Mount View had prepared us. But I don't think I was overly confident. And so I remember being in a bit of a tiz, and we didn't do all of the music material, and it was okay. But I think I was so conscious of getting it wrong or doing the right thing that for quite a few of my initial auditions, I wasn't really being Amy. And actually, I found that my career kind of took a different direction, and a better direction, when I relaxed a little bit and just started to be me in auditions and enjoy them more. Like when someone said to me, you might not get the job. Imagine you're not getting the job. So this is your chance to perform. So just treat the audition like the job, like the performance. And that's what I try and do now. And then after every audition, I just forget about it and move on. Like, my job's done. If I hear from them, great. If I don't, then it's fine.
Well, that's very philosophical. I interviewed Kelly Gliptus, who sings in musical theatre and opera.
Yeah.
And when she auditioned for Phantom, she forgot the words.
Oh, yeah. It happens, doesn't it?
But she carried on and got the job. But yeah, I suppose it does happen. But I'm very conscious. I'd be very conscious of not knowing the words and.
Yeah.
But the show must go on. If you forget something, you make it up and just keep going, I suppose.
I think so. And I think, when people are auditioning you, they want to know what you're going to be like if you make a mistake, and it's how you respond to that, or how you take direction. Like I've definitely been in like a situation where I was doing something, and when you kind of know you're not right for a part, or it's just not quite the right fit, but you're going to do it anyway, and
absolutely,
just have fun with it. And I think it's the approach to it more than anything.
How do you think the theatre and the entertainment world has adapted since you started to wheelchair users? I mean, we met your lovely friend who was in sex education.
In sex education, George?
Yeah, so we met George. He'd been to see at Little Big Things, and it just shows how the industry is changing and adapting to wheelchair users. I mean, he plays a great role in sex education.
Yeah.
But how do you think it's changed since you started?
I mean, it's changed massively, I think, because when you think, like the role George plays on sex education and some other roles, we're starting to get to the point where we're seeing characters where disability isn't all they're about. And I remember when I started auditioning, first of all, musical theatre was almost a no-go area for me. Like, I know I mentioned one of my first auditions was for Sweeney Todd, but I really didn't get seen for many musical theatre jobs after graduating from a musical theatre college. And I kind of just had to accept that. I got told it was because theatres weren't accessible, which was kind of true. A lot of the theatres in London weren't. And if it's a long running show, I'm probably not going to be in the recast of it because it's already been rehearsed for someone who's not a wheelchair user. But aside from that, like with TV and everything, the roles that were coming our way, they were all just stereotypes. I knew that I was either going to be playing a victim and everything was going to be about my wheelchair, or I was going to be a villain with an origin story that was bitter about being disabled, or I was going to be in a comedy where every punchline was about my disability. And there's still traces of that now. Like there definitely is. I sometimes, kind of wish there was a bit more variety, but the difference from kind of when I graduated to now is big. And I mean, I graduated in 2013, so they've had enough time to adapt. And also, like, I remember when I left, there was this big thing where there were quite a few auditions, like general auditions, where they knew that they wanted a character to be disabled, but they didn't know what disability or any other characteristic about the character. So you'd go in and you'd be sat in a waiting area, and you'd all be disabled in different ways. But aside from that, there's nothing else. And you kind of think, well, I want to play a character. I don't want you to be auditioning my disability. I want you to be auditioning me as an actor. And I want to be able to attach this character, not this kind of generic thing. And also at the time, the other thing that I think has changed is that there was people had something against casting disabled actors in parts where it didn't matter whether they were disabled or not. And my agent was really like knocking on doors being like, well, why couldn't Amy play this part? There's nothing to say whether she could or couldn't. And some of them are like small parts that really wouldn't have mattered. But nowadays, like that's improved so much. I think that's the biggest change for me. Like I've done quite a few jobs recently in the last year, like TV jobs, where the character hasn't been disabled or not disabled. They haven't specified.
But I think the classic one for me, and the entertainment industry was absolutely ripe with this. They choose people that didn't have a disability to act a particular. I mean, a classic case, and I absolutely love it. But Notting Hill is a classic example of that. Or they'll choose somebody to play a gay role and they're not gay. It's just there's no need and fortunately it's moved on and they are selecting people for the roles on ability. But if somebody's disabled, you don't get someone who's an able-bodied person to take that role. I don't think anyway. Maybe I'm being a bit.
No, I don't think so, because I also just think they're probably going to play the part better because there's more of a deeper understanding of what that is. Because, I mean, I'm pretty confident that I can tell when someone's not a wheelchair user in a film because of the way they push their chair. Yeah. Like if it's a very different thing when it's something that is the norm in your life.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there is still quite a lot of that. And it's hard. And I think now we're at the point where we're seeing people assess people's access needs and using that as a reason to cast them or not cast them. Like for me, I'm fairly lucky in the sense that I just need no steps and I need an accessible loo. And, accessibility. I don't need anything more, but there are people who need a lot more than that it might cost more, people that need a PA or an interpreter where there's more money involved. If they've got the choice between someone who requires more money to play that part and someone who doesn't, a producer head might, say, well, let's go with the cheaper option. And that isn't how it should be. And there are things out there like Access to Work to make sure that doesn't happen. But it's not necessarily made easy for people. And a lot of people, who are producing, it's not their fault, they just don't know.
No.
And it's just about education and having kind of access coordinators and people explain like, no, it's possible and you're not going to like lose money. So I feel quite passionately about that, about making sure people aren't taking the easy option.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, let's move on to your roles, because you have played in some fantastic roles. The list is too long. I was reading it earlier on, and I very rarely read pieces from Wikipedia or what have you. I just find out from people. But you've done some amazing things, haven't you? You talked about Shakespeare, the television work that you've done, all the different bits and pieces. What did I see you'd done on the TV? There's something quite significant on there. Does that all come through an agent, or do you look?
No, it pretty much all comes through my agent. There's been some exceptions to that, in the sense that I did a play called Reasons You Shouldn't Love Me, which was a one-woman show that I wrote. So, wow. I mean, I didn't have to audition for it. I just kind of wormed my way in there. But again, my agent then sorted out all the contracts. So having an agent is very, very useful. But yeah, pretty much I would say a lot of the things that I did do came through my agent. And, there's connections is a big part of it, and building up relationships. But everything pretty much goes through Lee. Yeah. But
you were a comedian. You've done comedian work in 2016, if I read that correctly. And how did you get involved in that, and what places did you play?
Well, not many. It was kind of short-lived. But essentially, early on in my career, I was just getting a bit tired of playing the same roles, or not getting much work. Let's be honest. I was tired of not being employed as an actor. So I read a few books about improvisers, and like Tina Fey's book and Amy Poehler's book, their memoirs. And so I decided to sign up for an improv class, and as a way of getting to know people, and also as a way of flexing the acting muscles and learning a new skill. And I really loved it. I did a lot of it, did lots of different courses and intensives, and set up my own kind of improv troupe in Essex. And we did a few shows. And I loved it. And the improv courses led to me doing a sketch comedy course, like writing for sketch comedy, which then led to me doing some stand-up, which was essentially like a one-woman sketch that I turned into a stand-up set. And I took that around to Colchester New Comedian of the Year, that competition, and won it, which was a nice surprise.
Brilliant.
And I did a few other kind of competitions and everything, but I get hesitant about calling myself a stand-up comedian, because I didn't do the kind of the slog that other comedians do. I kind of realised that I really enjoyed stand-up, but I really loved improv, and I think that was partly because of the comedy, and you're doing things together, and it's kind of not as lonely to do. But that the stand-up stuff kind of led me to do speeches and panel talks and things like that, which led to me writing. Like, I got asked to write an essay for a book called Feminists Don't Wear Pink and Other Lies. Wrote that about intersectionality, which I had to Google because I didn't know what it meant.
What does it mean?
Oh, that's a good question. Read the book. I get scared. No, it is actually really interesting. I will probably butcher it. I always tend to direct people to do what I did.
I'll Google it.
Because there is a woman speaking about it on YouTube, and her name escapes me now, which is really bad, but she articulates it beautifully and far better than I could. But yeah, I kind of wrote that book and realised I enjoyed writing essays, and then wrote a series of essays, and ended up turning them into a play, which turned into Reasons You Shouldn't Love Me, which became my first bit of writing. So it's all linked, and it all stems from being very unemployed.
I'm just going to read. I'm just going to put my glasses on. I'm just going to read some things that you've done here, television-wise. The Couple Next Door, Such Brave Girls, Amandaland. I mean, that is such a massive.
Yeah.
Father Brown, Everything Now, The Reckoning, Unforgiven, Casualty, the other one, Feel Good, Unprecedented, Stella, Doctors,
Yeah.
Luther, The Fallen Son, Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. I mean, Amy Trigg, you're famous. How does that feel?
Oh, stop it. I mean, it's, it's very funny. It's very funny.
What do your friends say now? I mean, I'm talking about your real friends that have been with you throughout, the days. What do they say about Amy Trigg?
I mean, they're all just very proud, I think.
I bet
but it
they
is
are.
Interesting because it's kind of shifted in the last couple of years. Because a lot of the TV work that I've done, they've been kind of day player roles where I've turned up and done an episode or turned up and done like a day's filming or a week's filming. And there's some where I've returned and everything, which has been lovely. So it didn't really kick off for me until I did Reasons You Shouldn't Love Me, and that got quite a lot of traction. But then when I did a musical called The Little Big Things, a couple of years ago now, I guess.
Yep.
And that found quite a kind of fan base, and people loved it. And I mean, I loved it. And a lot of people saw the show, and it was very strange when that happened, because suddenly people kind of were more aware of my work. And yeah, I definitely went to a theatre, went out to the theatre with some friends and my cousin and my parents, and people in the kind of theatre recognised me from my work on Little Big Things. And it is always strange, but people are lovely. So it's always nice to talk about work you're passionate about,
It's gratifying, isn't it, when people say, "Oh, I saw you do this," or "I saw you do..." It's when they say, "I saw you do this," and they didn't like it, which I get quite often. But anyway, that's a different story.
Well, no, but it happens, doesn't it? I never know what to. Or when the people, yeah.
Well, because I do true crime stuff on Sky and what have you. It doesn't always go down well with some of the recipients, but you can't odds that, can you? That's all part and parcel of the. I've got Michael Barrymore on my case at the moment, but that's another story.
Oh dear, oh boy.
But yeah, I mean that was 2 summers ago, and of course you won awards. I mean, what was that like? It was an Olivier or 2 Oliviers.
One Olivier.
One Olivier. So you won.
We'll get the other one at some point.
Well, let's hope so. So you won an Olivier. How does that work, and how were you nominated for that particular award?
Good question. I don't really know. Well, I know that with the Oliviers, they have like a big kind of committee, and I think committee is the right word, but lots of people from the Oliviers come and see all the eligible shows throughout the year, and then they choose who is nominated and who eventually wins in each category. So we kind of knew in the Little Big Things that we were eligible to be nominated. And we knew when we did sometimes get whispers of we've got some Olivier voters in and stuff like that. Not very often. I think they kind of come in under the radar and everything.
Yeah.
They're all lovely because they're all big theatre fans. I met quite a few of them after the Oliviers at the after party, and it was so fun, getting to talk to them because they're people who've seen so much theatre. So it was kind of happening under the radar, and we knew that it was a possibility we were going to be nominated for an Olivier, but we weren't sure. You never like to assume, do you? And then I was having a very lazy morning, and suddenly my phone started going wild. It was like beeping and everything, and I looked at Jordan, my now fiance, and I was like, "What's going on?" We looked at my phone, and it was our WhatsApp group from the Little Big Things company just going kind of wild because we got nominated for Best New Musical, Best Choreographer for Mark Smith, and then I got nominated for Best Actress in a Supporting Role in a Musical. So that was exciting and kind of like a surprise and a real buzz. And then we got to go to the nominee luncheon, which was very fancy at a fancy hotel. So I took my mum and got a certificate and everything, which is really, really cool. And then on the night of the Oliviers, it was nuts because we'd finished the show like a month before. So we were just loving being reunited as a company, and we got to perform that night. We got to perform a number from the show, and I think we were just so like pumped full of adrenaline in Act One from getting to perform together again, that when me and Jordan went and took our seats for like Act Two, which we knew that was when the category that I was nominated in was going to be announced, I'd kind of like relaxed, because I'd had such an adrenaline high from performing at like the Royal Albert Hall was where it was at. And it's amazing, like that space is incredible to perform in. You kind of can't take it in. Then when it happened, it was, very, very overwhelming, but a lot of fun. And I think, talking about my dad earlier about him being like so supportive. So mum, dad, and then a few of my friends and my cousin were in watching that night. And they was like sat further at the back, and apparently when it was announced that I'd won, Dad like leapt to his feet and screamed like he was at a football match, and then lost his voice.
I'd have been in tears.
Yeah, I think they were. It was very overwhelming.
Yeah, I bet it was.
It was very strange.
We won't tell anyone your dad's a real softie at heart. It's
he is.
I know.
Yeah. So I'm very lucky, their support, and it meant a lot also like having them there that night, because we're such fans of theatre as kind of a family, and they've taken me to so many things. And for I think it was my 16th birthday, or no, maybe I can't remember, one of my birthdays, mum and dad got me tickets to go to the Olivier Awards when I was younger, and I sat like at the back watching it with my mum and one of my best mates. And then like years later being there as a nominee and winning it just felt really special to share that with them and kind of being able to like give back to them. It was really fun. Yeah.
I bet it was. No, it's I'd be, mind you, listen, you're talking to the guy that cries at the opening of a Kit Kat. I cannot even watch. What did I see the other night? Oh no, don't even go there. The Stacey Solomon thing that was on last night.
I need to watch it. Yeah.
No, you don't. If you watch it, make sure that you have lots of tissues. It was absolutely heartbreaking. Let's talk about your writing. Okay, so you are now writing. You've written your own shows. Who do you write for? How do you get commissioned, and what's the process?
Yeah. It's kind of a mix with writing, because I have a writing agent, and a lot of it comes through Mel from my agent, especially a lot of meetings that she'll often set me up with, general meetings, and I'll go to them and form relationships with production companies. And then if they've got a project in mind, they might call me back and be like, do you want to write on this? Or if they like something that I pitch in the room or over Zoom, then they'll be like, okay, let's carry on developing this together. So that's often how it happens. But it's a real mix, because again, it's so down to the relationships you build. Like my first play, the one woman show, we performed that at the Kiln, and then I've been commissioned to write another play for the Kiln from my relationship with them and that play. So it happens in all different ways, but with writing it is a little bit different, because a lot of stuff does come through your agent, but you also have to, keep putting yourself out there and building those relationships, because you're not auditioning for a show because the show hasn't been made yet, unless you're interviewing to be part of a writer's room. That's a bit different. But a lot of the stuff that I'm working on.
It is hard, isn't it? It is hard writing, maintaining that momentum, and there are so many hurdles that you have to jump in order to get. Because there's lots of good writers out there, isn't there? But it's a massive battle. And I write stuff for television. I put stuff up for commissioning. I put stuff into production companies, and they like it, and we work on things and develop them. And I've learnt so much since retiring from the police. I mean, you got to remember, I'm a 30-year copper. That was me, and I sort of learnt. By touch, as I go along, I learn something new, and I've got some great people that help me along the way. But I realise how much work goes into getting something onto a production, whether it be the television or into a theatre.
It is a lot, and people don't realise, and I don't know about you, but I sometimes feel like a fraud, when I'm telling people that I'm busy working, and I think people expect to, if they hear that you're busy working, writing, they expect to see that thing on TV or on stage within a few months or the next year, and you're like, no, it's a TV project that I've been working on for 4 years. And they're like, oh, is it close to being made? And I'm like, probably not. But it's just, development is such a long process, but I really love it. But it's kind of heartbreaking, isn't it? Because when you realise how much like work goes into these shows, and then you end up binge watching these shows in a night, and you're like, oh my gosh, I just watched this person's work that has lasted years and years and years, and I watched it all in one evening. It kind of blows my mind seeing what the iceberg.
The public don't understand.
Yeah,
you've got those posters, Back to the Future. Yeah, you've got those posters behind. But people don't understand how much work goes into getting that production onto a big screen, and even just doing the small stuff, trying to get people interested, and they're great people, but they're getting other people that will write into them, and it doesn't always get developed, or it gets developed and then you think, oh yeah, they've done a sizzle, spent a load of money on getting a sizzle in on something that you've put forward, and nobody takes it up, and you think, oh, that was, it's a really good, and that's quite demoralising as well. So it is hard.
It is, yeah. I think it kind of helped me coming from an acting background, because I'm quite proud of how I handle rejection. I'm quite good at knowing it's often not personal. Like 9 times out of 10, it's never personal. And also, I had this isn't writing, but it's acting. I went up for a part that. Oh no, it was connected to writing actually, because this director came to see Reasons You Shouldn't Love Me, the play that I wrote, and remembered me and got me to audition for another play of his, and I wasn't quite right for it. Like I didn't think so. Maybe I was, but I kind of wasn't sure, and it didn't end up going my way. And I was like, that's fine. And I went to see it, and it was amazing. And it was amazing. And then I got asked by the same director to come and do a workshop for him. And then that workshop turned into a West End production, which he invited me to be a part of.
Right.
Director is Dominic Cook, who is brilliant and like an amazing director and lovely man. And I just think it's so nice to hear those stories sometimes, because you often say, the door is never closed. If it doesn't go your way that time, people will remember you. But sometimes if you're having a down day, you think, oh, does that really happen?
Yeah. And
it was so nice for me actually having that happen, and having someone remember and kind of keep bringing me back, even if it didn't work out one time. So that was nice. I try and remember that.
The lovely thing for you is that time is on your side. Whereas when you're an old bloke like me, you're up against it, thinking, oh yeah, the next thing. I think it's that Del Boy moment. One day, Rodney. One day.
Yeah.
So what happens next for Amy Trigg? Where are you going, and what are you going to do, and what does the future look like?
Well, I mean, I've had a kind of busy, a year of kind of working on like TV jobs and doing kind of day player stuff and everything, which means that I've had time to write a bit more, because when I'm doing a theatre show like The Little Big Things, or before that it was Medea, and I found myself not having enough time to do the writing that I wanted to do. So it's been really nice recently to devote more time to writing. So actually just writing a lot at the moment. I'm managing to do some new things that I've always wanted to do. I'm writing a book for a musical, because I love musicals, and I've always wanted to write a book for a musical. So really enjoying that at the moment. And just keeping busy with writing and seeing what comes along next. It's kind of a scary thing, isn't it? Because you don't know what comes along next. People say, oh, what's next? And you just want to be, I don't know. We'll see.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Who was your inspiration? I mean, I haven't touched on this, but who was your inspiration as an actor?
Oh, as an actor? I'm not sure. I feel like there's so many different people out there. I don't know whether I could pinpoint one off the top of my head. I mean, gosh, no, I'm not sure. I mean, I will say this probably isn't the best answer, but I remember seeing Darren Criss perform in Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And it's probably not the best answer, because I saw him, this wasn't that long ago. It was probably, I don't know, however many years ago, a while ago. But I remember watching him and just being like, that was a spellbinding performance. Like, that was incredible. And there was one particular scene that I was just like, oh, if I could do that, I'd be very, very happy. So I remember that really inspiring me as like one particular performance. But there are so many. There's lots of people. And I always think, you know, those books, Amy Poehler's book and Tina Fey's book, they really inspired me. So it'd probably be remiss not to kind of mention them.
Have you met either of them? Have you worked with either of them?
No, not yet. One day.
Yeah, exactly. Who would you like to work with other than those two?
Who would I like to work with? Gosh, there are so many people. It sounds really silly. I don't know. It's probably not silly. Actor-wise, I think Andrew Garfield is brilliant. I'd love to like work with him on something, and he's great. Yeah, there are too many. I just keep thinking of my friends. I know it sounds really silly. I realise I should be saying these kind of names, but like I just came off a Zoom with my mate Johnny, and we did the Little Big Things together. And we're both actors. We met as actors, and we're working on a writing project together now as writers. And I kind of love that. So I kind of just want to work with my friends.
There's nothing wrong with that. If it works, it works. I don't know who I'd like to work with, if I'm really honest with you.
Hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not. There's.
Ooh.
Go on.
I just think of someone. No, you go.
Oh, no, you go.
Are you watching Severance?
No.
I Severance on Apple TV. I would work with anyone involved in that production.
Would you?
Anyone, and Succession. I'm thinking of like my favourite TV shows. Do you know what? If I could work with any, and also actually writer-wise, Duncan Macmillan, I think, is an amazing writer, and Chris Bush. I'd love to work with them. Yeah.
See this.
And Nick Payne. It's all coming out now.
Yeah, but you see, I've sparked that imagination, haven't I? I've sort of ignited that passion to who you want to work with. But it does make you think, doesn't it? It does make you think. I should have brought my cup of tea up here.
I know, it's peppermint tea. Yeah, it does make you think, because I think I'm always so conscious of the best experiences I've had in life have been total surprises.
Yeah.
I would never have imagined of doing the Little Big Things. It literally didn't exist. It was a new musical. I couldn't have said a few years ago, I want to do the Little Big Things, and it ended up being my dream job. And so I'm almost hesitant sometimes to do like a 5-year plan, or to say I want to work with this person on this and things like that, because the best things that have happened to me have been curveballs. So
how did you get selected? How did you get selected for that though?
For the Little Big Things?
Yeah.
Well, they did a workshop, and I might have understood this wrong, but as far as I'm aware, the Emma Kingston, who's an actress who's going into Wicked actually, she was at drama school with me, I think the year above me, and she did some demos for the composer Nick for the Little Big Things, and the character who she was singing in for, she knew that in the script that was, I don't know if it'd been written or was being written, was a wheelchair user, and she kind of said, "Oh, do you know Amy Trigg?" to Nick, and they were like, "Oh, no, not really." And she said, "Oh, I went to Mountview with her," and from that recommendation, I think the casting director Jill Green and the team got in touch with my agent just to see if I fancied doing the first workshop, which I was really anxious about, because I hadn't done musicals for a long time, and I was a bit scared about going into the room. And I was really scared actually. I was listening to my hypnotherapy tapes, because I had to have hypnotherapy when I was at drama school for self-confidence, because I was struggling a bit, and I had to whack them out that week because I just had imposter syndrome everywhere. And it went well. The week went well, and they kept asking me back for different workshops. So technically my audition process was doing the workshops, and it was the same case for a few of the others in the company. Which is nice.
I'm going to ask you about Shakespeare, because that's something that features in your biography.
Yeah.
What was that like, doing Shakespeare? I'm a I don't know how to describe it. I don't know whether I like Shakespeare or not. I've been to the Globe.
Oh yeah.
And I find that some of because it's written in old scripts, if you like, for want of a better word, I find it very difficult sometimes to follow.
Yeah.
How did you find that as an actress that didn't have a classical background?
Yeah. Well, when I was learning my drama school pieces with Anne, she got me to kind of translate everything into, modern day English, which is kind of a common practice. But I never thought to do that before. And that really helped. And she encouraged me to really enjoy the language of it all, and be a bit nerdy about it and enjoy it. And also I find sometimes Shakespeare is easier to remember because it has got a rhythm and a pattern to it. So that's also a nice thing for an actor sometimes, if that's the way their brain works. And so I knew I was interested then. And then again, when we did our Shakespeare kind of term at Mountview, because we didn't do loads of Shakespeare because we were musical theatre. I was on the musical theatre course, but when we did it, there was just something in me that loved it and really connected with it. And I think maybe there was part of me that was scared that I wasn't smart enough, in the same way that was my fear when I got into writing. I thought, am I smart enough to do this? But I think if you feel some kind of connection with it, it doesn't matter if you don't understand it, or you can look into it and everything. And I had to kind of learn that to really enjoy it. So I kind of always knew I enjoyed it, basically. And when I got the audition to do a season with the Royal Shakespeare Company, I was just so excited. And I think sometimes you get these auditions through that you really, really want. And I think I had to go to a few different auditions, like 3 or 4 auditions in total. And I remember after the final one, Dad had taken me. We'd driven into London together, and afterwards we went and had a hot chocolate at a cafe around the corner, and I just didn't speak to him. I think I just sat in silence, and I was like, Dad, I can't, because I knew I really wanted it. It was just something in me that really wanted to give it a go and see if I could do it. And I really loved it. And I think the lovely thing about the RSC is that you feel, for me anyway, with my season, I did Tame with the Shrew and Measure for Measure, and I was also understudying as well. So it was so full on. And on top of that, we also had these things called Shakespeare gymnasiums, which is every week. Someone from the company, often the artistic director, Greg, at the time, he would run like an hour-long workshop on Shakespeare, and you just use a random bit of text. So I kind of came away from my time there feeling like I'd done an MA in Shakespeare.
I bet.
And I've done a little bit of Shakespeare since, but not as much as I would like. I would love to do a Shakespeare again soon. And that surprises me, because when I was at school, I didn't think I liked Shakespeare. And I still think sometimes people get scared off saying I love Shakespeare, because it's the same thing as saying I love musical theatre. Now, I do love musical theatre, but that doesn't mean that I love every single musical in existence or connect with everything. In the same way that you can love Shakespeare, but completely not be able to connect with certain plays, and that's okay. But you might absolutely fall in love with one particular play, in which case you're a Shakespeare fan.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. But as I say, I think we're a bit overwhelmed by the complexity of Shakespeare. I think that's the tough part. But I enjoyed it at the Globe, but I did find it quite difficult to maintain that. Yeah, I
think it depends on the production as well. Like, I mean, I've definitely seen some productions where I've not really had any prior knowledge of the play and found it a little bit harder to connect with. But then I've seen others that, I think there's a way of doing it brilliantly and beautifully.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Amy Trigg, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you've enjoyed our chat, and I will be watching your progress with interest. And I suppose it's borrowed pride, but when your friend's daughter's doing as well as you are, the whole of Essex are proud of you and the work that you do. I remember your dad putting a post up. Your award went on display at the Victoria and Albert Museum, didn't it? And it was just your dad was absolutely rapt with it. And I was working at the Royal Albert Hall, so I walked through and had a look. Yeah, so I do a bit of work there. Nothing
cool.
too grand.
That's very that was a really fun day, because I knew that it was up. Someone had let me know that there was a photo up in the V&A, So I got mum and dad to come along with me, just saying I wanted to go and visit the V&A. So I didn't tell them until they saw it, and so I got their genuine reactions of shock. It was really funny.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, listen, have a lovely evening. Thank you so much for your time. I wish you every success for the future, and I hope that 2025 and beyond is perfect for you.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
I've really enjoyed it. Take care. God bless you, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks,
Thank
Amy.
you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.